Welcome to League Night, everybody. I'm joined in studio by Jamie Thomas. How's it going, man? Welcome to the show. Josh, you're here. You're bringing some good points tonight. You're looking forward to it?
It's always fun. Looking forward to it.
Always fun. We have a massive show lined up. DDO, the Dynamic Disc Open, just took place. It was a preview for Worlds. But let's go ahead and talk about what did this event bring. Look at that. Wind. The Dynamic Disc Open, formerly known, and we're going to say this for a few more years, I'm sure, known as the Glass Blown Open, was the stage for a battle for the best MPO and FPO players in the world. The wind was the main story throughout the first 3 rounds, making almost every throws result as unpredictable, get this, as an overtired toddler. I think some of us can relate. Some fans found that watching the top players in the world struggle was entertaining and engaging, while others couldn't find enjoyment, not knowing if they were watching good or bad disc golf. This was a 4-round event, and did we mention the wind played a big part? Some players who don't usually find themselves sitting inside the top 20 or even 30 or maybe the top 50 were there representing their names and their sponsors proudly in the top 10. While others like Paul McBeth found himself missing a cut line for the first time in his professional career. This event is known for bringing the win, but it's also held in the self-proclaimed disc golf capital of the world, where you'll find disc golf baskets on every corner and a disc golf block party that shuts down Main Street. Let's find out how the final round unfolded. The wind wasn't as big of a factor in the final round, almost not existent. For both the FPO and MPO, Jamie, go ahead and give us, what's the FPO? How did that unfold?
I still getting over the spotter's flag blowing off of the stick. That was great.
For sure.
FPO, like you said, Matt, final round. Finally got some scoreable conditions. Paige Pierce took advantage. She had herself a nice round, but the story is Katrina Allen. 5 down through 5, steps up to 6 here. Look at this. That's going to be the first third of the course, building that blue wall, please. And she had to. I mean, Kristen Tatar did work to get a good advantage going into the last day. And this is what you can do when there's no wind. Hit the long gun.
Boom.
Hit the big putts. Yeah.
We don't see that. We didn't see that enough in the first 3 rounds.
Just blew on Pierce's scorecard. She ended up in 5th place. Not bad, all things considered, for what they had to deal with this weekend. But Katrina Allen continuing to put on the pressure here on 12. This would start a series of 3 birdies in a row that would see her take the lead for the first time with holes running out. And Kristen Tatar.
She started out 6 down through 6. I thought it was going to keep going.
And look at this. Uphill, downhill, doesn't matter. Bottom of the bucket for Allen. Her putter has been on a different level this year. It's been awesome to see. Tatar starting to look a little bit shaky, a little bit unsure, let's put it that way, despite the great success she's been having. She really needed this drive here on 15 with the time running out on her. Easy little hyzer. But that's still a tester putt in the conditions that she was in that moment.
And knowing that Katrina was pressing very hard. She now is removed her lead. She's there just barely holding on.
And that was great because she's back 2. She gets back to 1. Hole 16, the island is always consequential out at Emporia Country Club. Ooh, look at this. Beautiful weight.
That is not an easy shot in that moment.
Count it. I don't know. That's one of those shots it's incredible to see happen. And
Katrina
that's
laid
one that,
up.
Yeah.
And
not incredible.
That happened to her a couple years ago too. She laid up, she got punished. The island is not kind to Katrina Allen. Here's Tatar. That is a layup position, ladies and gentlemen, that were criticizing her 2 weeks ago at Champions Cup. That's a layup position. Katrina's got to get aggressive. That's a way to put pressure. This is a great little shot in this right to left wind. She plays that perfectly. Low on the hillside, in birdie range. Tatar knows. Hey, that's how you do it. And Tatar talked about it. She was switching putters all weekend. So this is no surprise to see right here. This is what you should do in that scenario. Make Katrina hit this tough putt. And it's right there.
Close.
It's right there.
We would have had a playoff.
Yeah, she wasn't scared of the putt. She hit the upper band. She went for it.
Yeah, this is going to be a consequential stretch of holes when we come back for the World Championships. I guarantee it. But now Tatar, 2 weeks in a row on the tour, 2 seasons in a row on the tour. She's your winner this week in Emporia. Let's hear what she had to say.
Well, I just kept telling myself I just have to keep going. Nothing is over until until the last putt is in, and I mean, it was tough. It was tough, and at times I was like, Jesus, what am I doing? But yeah, I just kept going.
All right, Josh, tell us about what happened with the MPO.
Yeah, so it was a little bit different. Ricky started the day with a 4-stroke lead, and we'll hear later. Never looked back, doesn't lose. There was a lot more jostling down the leaderboard. You saw Simon with a beautiful turnover. And how about that memorable putting style with the ringer, Ebenheimer?
Yeah, are we playing horseshoes?
Yeah, it appears. Some people are watching it was like, yeah, is that cornhole? Is that horseshoes? What's going on? But again, you're going to see this throughout these highlights. Ricky doing Ricky things, signature forehand, a nice little hop of the disc. Back to Simon from the chase card, also showing he has a precision forehand. And look at that. I mean, he was feeling good. We'll also see that later in the show. But there are plenty of new names. Logan Harpool, Kansas native. So I don't think local to Emporia, but local to the region. Certainly probably a home crowd favorite. Great tournament for him. And then how about Brody Smith? Guys, we don't have to go back too far to hear debates on whether or not we'd ever see Brody on a final card lead round or not. Well, here he is, hole 7. Beautiful step putt, keeping pace. And honestly, of course, he didn't vie for the actual win. Nobody was against Ricky, especially when Ricky's throwing shots like this. Look, 3rd hardest hole of the weekend. Are you kidding me? Right? That's a blind shot. Sure, they play this hole a lot, but beautiful throw by Ricky. In Simon, kind of classic. What do you think? It's good to see him throwing high and far, right? That's a Simon thing. And look at that. Beautiful shot.
I love this putt right here.
It's just so, I mean, the touch, because the risk is so low, it's just right. I'm going to drop it in, or it's going to sit next to the base, right? And really, again, excellent. I mean, these are not familiar names, and they hung in there. As we'll see, they all vied for 3rd place on the podium. Here we have Ricky again. Really, the lead cinched up a little bit early in the round, but never really a question for him. But again, 2nd, 3rd, and anywhere beyond that was really a slugfest for these players. Back and forth, back and forth. Great approach. Simon again, signature spike hyzer. Watch this, putting it right where you need to.
Got to see a couple of those classic Simon lines from him this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. He just seems to be feeling it, and everybody's happy about that. Of course, we see Ricky here, but for Simon, and he jumped 4 spots in the final round. And so climbing the leaderboard on the final day, you see Gannon upset about his position, but Simon victoriously getting 2nd place, but that is quite a good tournament for him, given kind of his return. And this is all formality for Ricky here, right? Plenty of a lead, strong finish, overall strong weekend, persevering through the conditions, which we've referenced a couple times. A little raptor leg demonstration here. Check this out. He's hasn't forgotten how to do it, even in place. Look, you can't contain the excitement. You ready? All right, Ricky, show us. Yeah. All right. But with that excitement, yeah, let's hear what Ricky had to say about his weekend's win.
When it comes to your overall full potential, how satisfied with your play are you this week?
Obviously, I'm satisfied to get a win. Like you said, I'm done playing well here. I'm ready to win. So I wasn't letting that slip away, no matter what. And that was my mindset. Champions Cup, I let slip away. So I've been in contention a lot of tournaments, and I'm just done being in contention. I put myself in that situation. I'm going to win, and that's what I do. And I'm just thankful that I was able to play a little bit more cautious, a little more safe down the stretch. But I think the first couple windy days allowed me to do that.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So bucket hat Ricky, one of the top players in our sport.
I was just
Good for
going
him
to ask
getting the
you.
win.
I need your opinion on this. We saw Calvin going to Jonesboro in the final round. I think he was wearing a hat, if I'm correct. We have hat Calvin. I don't know
Well,
what you want to call it. Calvin?
I don't know. All I know is if you're going to wear a bucket hat, if you can get the pattern to match your polo, then it's all good.
All right.
Listen, we got Calvin Hatberg and Drippy Wysocki. We got new
Drippy
stuff this
Wysocki.
season.
Let's
Yeah.
go into 2 minutes. That was a good one. Appreciate that. All right. 2 minutes up. Why did we not go to 2 minutes? Let's see if we can get that again. Let's try it one more time. We're going to do 2 minutes twice, so we get 4 minutes. Is that how it works? All right, here we go. It works the second time.
Hey.
That is good. Technology is great. Let's go into our first topic here. We're talking about, to start this all out, McBeth misses the cut for the first time. This is another one of those incredible stats. You can look at it either way. This is the first time that he's ever missed the cut, or you could look at it as a negative light. But what does this mean to you? How are you looking at this? Jamie, give it to us.
What does it mean to me? It doesn't mean a whole lot. I think, like, for years we've debated in disc golf, as in like track and field, like when we see a world distance record, oh, there's too much wind, it doesn't count. Like, I almost want to take that logic and apply it here to a certain degree. Like, we can learn some things, but overall there's so much wind. We saw so many names towards the top that we knew that once the conditions died down, that like it was Ricky's to run away with because he's got that level. And Paul just didn't have it for whatever reason this weekend. So for me, it doesn't mean a lot. It is a little bit of a bruise. Like, it's an ego bruise for a guy like Paul. You want to go your whole career and say, I've never missed a cut. It's the same way Kale felt about having the cash streak. Sexton almost missed the cash streak this week. He made the cut just a little bit to keep that alive. You got to have those things that you pride yourself on as a player. So, it's scary for the rest of the field if McBeth comes back motivated.
But does anybody ever have the courage to go up to Paul at some point and further down his career and be like, yeah, but you missed the cut once? I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But Josh,
Well,
what do you have?
I guarantee you he knows that, and that may be the motivation or one of many motivating factors that these top athletes always latch on to. Look, it doesn't mean anything. Hey, if nothing else, it finally proves that he's human, right? He's done something that I could actually do, which is miss a cut at a pro tour event. But more seriously, well, that is debatable. More seriously, look, half of me wants to just dismiss this as like, yeah, things happen. It's fine. Statistics finally catching up with you. You're going to miss it. It's crazy, extreme, weather, et cetera, et cetera. But I do wonder, right? We've seen Paul a little bit this year have some up and down rounds. Texas State's Champions Cup round 3. I'm not saying there's a storyline here, but here's the thing. The story tells itself as it unfolds. I am going to watch and say, can Paul start to put together consistent tournaments and not have an off round? Missing the cut itself, not too worried, but I wonder if there's possibly a theme emerging.
Yeah, the disc golf world loves to react and say he's washed up. Those who resound that story every year are like, this is it. This is the moment. I have a feeling they'll be let down. I appreciate both of your takes. Let's get into topic number 2 here. Wind in Kansas. It seems synonymous. They go together. We saw a lot of it. In fact, some of the players are saying that this was the windiest they've ever had back-to-back rounds. So meaning 3 in a row. This has to go down as the windiest. Tell me your story, your opinions. Was this fun to watch? Was this not fun to watch? Were you inspired by it? Did it bore you? What's your take on this, Josh?
Yeah, so I'll start with a Nate Sexton quote about this actual round. We're doing something out here, but it isn't disc golf, but it is something. Obviously, players frustrated because everything that they hone in, right? The whole focus and practice basically gets discarded. Look, I've seen a range of opinions, everything from I love seeing the pros face this challenge all the way over to like, this is why I hate DDO, right? I mean, it's like, so you're going to get polarizing opinions. I can understand the sadistic humor and seeing the top tour pros struggle with conditions. So I get that. But here's the thing. I've been consistent with this no matter what the debate is. I always want to see our top pros playing some of their best disc golf, no matter what it is. Right. And when you have this kind of win, to me, like, sure, there may be an entertaining aspect, but I don't like it. They all had the same conditions. You could say anybody who has a better strategy could have fought through it. But at some point, you get rid of certain advantages like putting. And for me, that's not what it's about. I know you can't control the weather. I know I'm about over my time.
Yeah.
Look, I know wind's part of the game, but extreme wind, it's not for me.
Jamie, was it fun to watch? Were you inspired?
For a while it was fun, and then it wasn't fun. Like
Yeah.
there's a point at which it's fun to watch the pros get frustrated. And I don't mean that in like a antagonistic way, but like you need to see them struggle a little bit. And you need to prove that like the courses are great enough and the courses can win the battle once in a while, and it's not just 16 downs all the time. But there was a point at which like the point at which the game plan goes totally out the window and you can't even plan for what happens or even have a strategy. You're just throwing and praying. That's where it gets a little not fun. So there's nothing you can do about it. You know, it's the weather. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, I like some frustration. Maybe not 4 rounds of it, 3 rounds of it.
I heard yesterday Calvin say that they are trained to always go for the birdie. That's the way you win. The unfortunate part is some did not reconfigure their strategy here, and aggressive play resulted in bad scores. So we'll see. We're going to talk more about that later, but let's go to the Emporia Island is what we're calling it. And I was laughing earlier. Is this the same as, Pinocchio's Pleasure Island? Some would say yes. Some would say no. I think Matt Bell might say yes. The $25,000 ace hit earlier in the week. Others, not so much. We saw a lot go in the water. We saw some skip out. We saw some players win it on this hole in years past, and including this year. But this year was interesting, especially in the FPO. It wasn't landing the green that was the trouble. We saw Katrina miss her putt and go into the water, and we know how it unfolded. We already talked about that. But tell us your thoughts on an island hole like this, Josh.
Yeah, so what a fun island hole. And it's actually an island, right? Look, sometimes you're watching disc golf and I'll mention an island hole to someone in the room with me and they look on the screen and it doesn't make any sense to them because it's a bunch of flags or maybe some hay bales. But here, the term island actually makes sense. And so it's funny. That's not my main point, but that is a big point. It's an island. There's a bridge to get onto it. The design is fun. Also strategic. It allows for layups. A nice little backstop on the back of the island added a few years ago, but a treacherous comeback putt if you're not close enough. This hole delivers. Look, 2 aces in the final round. We had none the prior year. Jeremy Colling, Chloe Alice. But even more intriguing to me is the design, the strategy, and the decision it forces. You already mentioned it, Matt. Katrina consistently laying up, getting on the island safely, whereas Kristen puts the pressure on because she lands the island and then flubs the putt because it's a pressure putt, right? There's a risk. And honestly, she almost gave it away. She got lucky, in my opinion, to stay on the island.
There you go.
Give me more holes like this. Don't overdo it, disc golf world. But whenever you can design one, give it to us.
Josh says luck. He brought up the word luck. Does an island like this bring luck into it, Jamie?
Sure, but there's luck in all of disc golf and all of golf. It's just, can you see it? And I think to Josh's point, the fact that it's a real island and not just a rope string and, okay, there's tall grass here and short grass here, that actually scares the pros. I mean, you saw how quickly Katrina went and recovered her putter just so it didn't float away and she'd lose it forever. You need to actually have that frustration and make them a little scared because that's when diamonds are created under the greatest pressure. So I love it. I love the position on the course. I think that having that danger really makes you have to consider your strategy in a couple different ways. But the number one thing I'd love to see, just brick in that front side or make it, you got that nice wall in the back, get that front side nice and clean. No more questionable calls on that island, but it's a great hole.
Oh, great point there. I think that would be an improvement that would take that to the next level. Let's talk about our final and fourth topic here. Impressed by is what we're calling this because there were obviously more players than just our top 10 at this event. We saw names actually breaking through that never break through. So tell us, who are those players that we don't usually talk about that you find yourself being impressed by? Jamie, go ahead.
I am impressed by everybody who you don't know until you knew him this weekend or met him this weekend that just stayed the course.
Hebenheimer?
John Jacob Hebenheimer Smith. Give me more of that putt. Yes. I'm about it. Do what works for you. I think Kevin Jones has been saying that very famously. Play your style, fight the mental fight, and you might be there at the end. You never know. People would have lost so much money betting if there was a prop line that said Paul McBeth will miss the cut at Emporia. Nobody would bet that, and the house would take a ton of money. Anyway, Logan Harpool, really impressed with that guy. For somebody who's been playing for 4 years, the touch that he had, we saw it in the highlight reel, that floater from C2 on 13, that was nasty. really great performance. We saw some great performances from Emily Beach. We saw, just a handful of great players really step up and show where this sport is going, especially when the conditions get really tough and kind of narrow that skill gap.
All right, Josh,
Yeah.
what do you have?
Yeah, my favorite kind of non-winning storyline, MPO. I know he can be polarizing to some. I understand why. I'm sure there are plenty of others down the leaderboard who are grinding just as hard and maybe even longer. But in MPO, my favorite non-winning story is Brody Smith. Honestly, for me, it's just fun to see somebody with the pressure of the limelight to come out and prove it where it matters, which is on the leaderboard. So I just liked that story. And in FPO, here's a name, not a new name. In fact, well over a decade, really even longer, I think probably 2 decades, but is Jennifer Allen. Now, she did not finish incredibly well with a 10th place. I know she won't be satisfied with the way the final round went down, but she earned her spot on the lead card final. And I just think it's fun. She's kind of faded a little bit on the tour, dabbled a little last year, and for the most part is back this year. To me, that's my favorite FPO story down the leaderboard. Glad to see Jennifer out here competing.
Yeah, I am as well. And Jamie, you got the song stuck in my head now. We've got Gossage, Harbull, Hebe, and Heimersmith. There's our top 3. That works out.
On.
Put Makala in there and you get bonus points.
We got to do the, instead of the da-da-da-da, Makala. Okay, cool. I don't know. We're off track now, but we have more to talk about. So let's do that now. We're going to bring up some topics that we think are previews possibly for Worlds here. In fact, let's ask that question now. Let's open up the conversation. What did we learn at this Worlds preview? And I'm not setting this up as a 2-minute topic. We can take this wherever we want to. So go ahead, Josh, take this one and we'll pass it around.
Well, okay. So, or was this a Worlds preview? Now, I know technically it is, but that's part of the question is, was there anything here that actually previewed? So the obvious answer is yeah, to some extent. Jones Supreme was a new course layout that they're familiar with the grounds, but not familiar with this new layout. So in some ways you get that preview. I'm sure they'll make some tweaks, but I think that layout for the most part is there to stay. So yes, you learn some things. The weather was so extreme, however, that you actually have to caveat it and say, unless it's that extreme again, then a lot of what they learned is dismissed. How aggressive can you be on that course, right? Like you don't necessarily know because the wind really threw that strategy out. I have some other thoughts and some observations of as far as player performance and how that might translate, but I don't know. Matt, okay. Jamie, reactions?
Let's stay on what you're talking about, though, because I think you just made a really important point, is that the whole point of this was to preview the Jones Supreme layout for the 5-round major that's coming later this year. And I think a lot of the different players are going to be questioning whether their strategy is actually effective. And if you're not sure, and by the way, we're still going to be in Kansas, and it's going to be 5 days instead of 4. So there's some probability that you could get around like this even if, seasonal climates may not indicate that it'll be as drastic. So it's still a big, big question mark. And I think that's the number one takeaway. There's going to be a little suspense. But if I were betting, I would say we're going to have a lower scoring, meaning less under par. I guess that's higher scoring, less under par world championships on our hands.
So I listened to some of the interviews following the tournament round, and some say we learned absolutely nothing as a preview for Worlds. Maybe besides, and I'll say this, we did learn what the layout was, and that was to your point, Jamie. The layout, we know what it looks like. We know where holes are, where OB is. Maybe we know where OB is. Sometimes it's hard to tell. But I think the layout was a big deal. It's an interesting thing. We don't know necessarily how it will play, but I think we also learned, or at least the players learned, I should say, how to play in really windy conditions. And as you mentioned, this is Kansas. And so if we are back there with wind, guess what? This was an excellent preview for Worlds. And we're going to see, I would imagine, lower scores than we did at this event. Yeah. So I think between the wind and the layout, if we have a similar experience, we learned a lot. If it's not as windy, the opportunity to play more aggressive is very high.
There's 2 things here in my opinion. Like, does it tell us a lot about a true Worlds preview? I'm not entirely sold on that. Okay. But any player who says, I learned nothing about this weekend that can translate to Worlds, like they're wrong or they have the wrong mindset. Like that's my opinion, right? Like you have to learn something. Even this, like to your point, Matt, I don't expect the wins to repeat at the same level, but if you're a pro now, you have several months to get your minds wrapped around that prospect. and you better darn well have a game plan if it does, right? So like
Right.
that's just an example, like you said, understanding the new course layout, etc. Any player who wants to compete at the top level should have learned something. Now, whether or not what we saw is an actual preview, in other words, are you going to bank on Logan Harpool, like, coming out and competing? That's a different kind of question in my mind.
Can I bring up that question and open it up to both of you? Who, I think we learned something from this event, is actually who is going to have a good chance to be in contention at Worlds. And you say, how? This wasn't maybe close to what it's going to be. But my thought process is those players who have proven themselves over the years. So again, Logan Harpool, other names like Hebenheimer. And I'm not saying these are bad
and
players.
FPO, Katrina Allen. I mean, like these are players who have been here.
Right. And I'm saying the players who have proven themselves over the years, finding themselves still in the top 5 or 10 at this event with the wind the way it was, you have to believe if we have better conditions that they will at least be in contention. I don't think there's any surprises there, but it shows me that Ricky has a really strong chance to win. Simon, that's another one that's interesting because he's been playing better. I don't know that the wind, it was a real big factor, but he still showed up just like Ricky. So,
well, and I'll give Eric McCabe a lot of credit here. He found a way to invert the formula of this 2-course event. Usually it's Emporia Country Club that's the harder of the courses, and when we've seen previous Jones layouts, it's the shreddable stuff, especially 5-6 years ago when it was Jones East, Jones West. Now we're looking at a possibility of Jones Supreme being the harder course, and maybe it's just because of more familiarity with the country club layout now. But at the end of the day, the new design does make it a really, really challenging 2-course combo.
Yeah, it leaves me craving, by the way, to come back and see and hopefully watch a multi-round event that does not have the extreme wind. I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see how that plays out.
I like that you brought up Eric McCabe there. Imagine being handed that piece of property and saying, have fun with this. Make it what you want. You sit back and dream and go, I want hole 1 to be an island hole. I want you're just going down and you're figuring it out. I think it was interesting to say the least. I think most of the players had a positive response. There was a few critiques, but I'm sure all those things will either get themselves worked out or that player is just going to have to learn to do it. We talked a little bit about this in our last conversation just now. What did we learn from this? Well, let's go ahead and bring it up here. Does this matter? What happened here? Does it matter as far as how much are we putting into these results? How much stock? Do we believe that this matters? If a player performed poorly here, does that mean that they're probably going to in the future of this event or at Worlds? Or are we saying, hey, someone and I hate to keep bringing him up, good job, Logan Harpool, finding yourself there, but does this mean that he is now, or he should expect to find himself in the top 10 regularly? What do you do with this? What do you think, Jamie?
No, it doesn't, and that's okay. That's not a slight at the guy at all. I'm a fan, and so congratulations on a great weekend. But what it tells us is it's a high floor, low ceiling type of scenario now. What you're going to see is a lot of players take the good results and say, "Hey, I've got that confidence. I've got good vibes coming back here. I know what I need to do." I mean, Simon said pretty much exactly that at the end of his round 4 when we interviewed him. He was saying, look, I've got good vibes here. This is where I've won an event before, so coming back means something to me. But at the same time, it's going to be a different time in the season. So I think the most we can put into stock into the results is this fact: after 3 weeks in a row of competition, that final day, I think that was the 11th round in 17 days or something in that range, including a major. So you're coming into this stretch extremely tired. Then you've got 3 days of wind that just beats the living what out of you, and questions if you are even playing disc golf correctly anymore. That kind of pressure is like Worlds. That is what the players can definitely take a lot from, because there's going to be a lot more tournaments to go. And inversely, when we get to the World Championships at the end of August, that's going to set up the beginning of a massive streak of very important tournaments. Remember, it's Worlds, week off, Green Mountain Championship, MVP Open, week off, USDGC and Throw Pink, then Tour Championship. So it's kind of an inverse scenario in ways, but that mental pressure and that body fatigue, that's what you can take stock into.
And you can see I already threw up our lower third there saying this was a grind. Josh, you can touch on both topics here, but they kind of begin to blend together a little bit. What are some of your thoughts on either of these topics?
Yeah. So as we transition to this, just to react, I mean, here's the problem with the results this past weekend. And by the way, it's to Jamie's point. They're legitimate and real results, and they should all take pride in them. Honestly, it's a Pro Tour Elite win or podium finish. But all the normal skills that we apply where the elite disc golfers separate themselves from the pack, they were all equalized. And you can determine if you like that or don't like that. But the point is if they're not equalized the next time we come around, then the results are going to be totally different, right? We're going to go back to the original formula, in my opinion. Now, as far as this being a grind, right, more mentally or physically tiring, Jamie was even touching on some of it. I'm not in love with the scheduling. My hunch is the Pro Tour probably is also not in love with the scheduling. And those are challenges they'll continue to refine over the years. Jamie said 11. These are high-level rounds of disc golf in 17 days. As you said, a major being one of them. And 2 of those events had 4 rounds. I mean, like, that is a physical grind and a mental grind. And look, I know some of our listeners here truly probably have what we would consider harder jobs than that. So nobody's complaining 11 days of work in 17 days. But if we as fans want to see them at their absolute best, then that won't get it done, right? We have to actually allow that buffer to not say, I don't want them beat down by a grind. I know some people do. I don't. But here's the thing. What we saw this past weekend, and I'll conclude kind of this, I think that is mentally taxing. Sure, they go together. How do you really separate them in the end? It makes me wonder, like, for what it's worth, if that's what actually broke Paul down in the 3rd round. Yes, it may have been the wind, but like that, I mean, that is hard to stay there. And I know that's a bold statement for probably one of our most mentally strong players. And so I could be outright wrong, but it makes me wonder. And in the end, Matt, because I know you will, if you were to force me to say, right, this past weekend, was it more physical or mentally draining for the players? I actually am going to say mental, because I think in golf, that's almost always the case.
Okay. I actually fall in the same line with you on the mental factor there. And I love that you brought up the 9 to 5 job that the rest of us hold, because I started playing this game in my head of what would it compare to? And I feel like it would be like having your annual review every single week with a big project leading up to that. I feel like that's the pressure they have here, where they're saying, I have to perform, because if I'm not at the top of my game, my brand and my career start to look not as bright. I think you said it perfectly. It's mental if you have to decide. I think the overpacked schedule, as in fact, Calvin Heimberg, not the most vocal of players, and we can joke about that. He talks a lot of smack, but he comes out and says he thinks it was a poorly planned schedule. It's a mental grind. It's also physical. I think being on the road constantly, literally on the road driving, plays a big factor into that. But again, all of that being said, physical, yes, the wind, maybe even physically being overtired, but I think mentally is where it all points back to. So mentally is where I land on this as well. Any closing thoughts, Jamie?
I want to go mentally with you guys on this, but maybe I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm going to say physical, and I'll make the case for a physical grind, because yeah, we bring up the 9 to 5 job comparison, but we tend to forget, I think, that these pros are throwing MLB level, low level MLB speeds with their arms. And if you're throwing 50, 60 shots per round, okay, even if you're a really worked MLB pitcher, like if you're going to be out there for a high pitch count, 2 rounds is a game, right? I don't think pitchers rotate in that often. So you're talking about 5-6 games worth of throws in 17 days. That's more work than these guys get paid, and they get paid in the tens of millions of dollars. So it's a lot of wear and tear on the body. You've got to look at the courses that were in the stretch. I mean, if we were coming off Waco instead of Jonesboro, it might be slightly different, but you got to throw long and accurate at WR Jackson. You got to get into the open and bomb it out here. And then you've got to throw your entire arm just to get your most overstable disc to fight the wind at a course that's been, lengthened quite a bit, because Worlds is going to be played on it. So mental grind.
Yeah, 2
100%.
courses. At 2 courses, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's another factor at Emporia. So yeah, I agree, Jamie. Of course, there's a physical aspect to it. I think that is a watch area. I think the physical aspect is more the longer term concern for me. because I think that does create a problem. But if you're asking me, like, but what happened over the last 2 weeks, their arms are okay over the 2-week window. Long term, you ask them to do that grind, I think you do have some worries. But man, I don't know. I respect to the pros. I think often local players don't understand the grind in the aspect, because we think, hey, I go out and play disc golf every day. I play 36 holes. And the answer is you don't compete at that level. And the big difference beyond the physical is the mental aspect. You do not know what it's like to try to win a pro tour when you have the skill set to get it done.
Look, let me tell you, I've played 2 pro tour events, and it's different. It's different. No matter how you stack it, you're not. And I was able to sleep in my own bed, drive to the course, have breakfast with my wife, all that stuff. Like, these guys are out at some random Airbnb, some hotel, staying in a van, like all of those things that are part of your preparation mentally and physically. The road is no joke. And always give the pros the benefit of the doubt when they're the road warriors, because it's tougher than you realize.
Yeah, I've seen some long time people who employed in disc golf are like, I remember the good old days. And I think that's great for them to remember the good old days where all you did was tour and play. But here's the point. Like, we have graduated from that and we have to act like it. But anyway, again, kudos to the pros out there grinding away.
So much disc golf. And we have something really cool here. I want Jamie to go ahead and tell us about what we're seeing here.
A little fun note here in the OTB after show on the final day. Simon Lazat, 2nd place. Congrats. I know everybody loves Simon. Check it out. He crashes set.
I'm looking at him over there. Oh, and here he comes.
We get a
Simon.
Nice job. I was just complimenting you.
Great job, buddy.
Right there.
Right there.
Look there and smile, buddy.
Thanks, guys, for all your hard work. You guys killed it.
Well, we
Great
appreciate
job.
you, buddy.
We love you,
Nice
Simon.
work.
Congratulations, buddy. Good luck.
Wow. Simon is definitely the people's favorite, or at least, hey, he's my favorite. And until we're going to wrap the show up, we talked about it a lot. We hope you enjoyed it. We're going to go ahead and send it out. We're going to tell everybody have a good week. We know a lot of the players are out there trying to catch some R&R, and we hope that they do, coming back ready for the next event. Until next time, everybody, we'll catch you out there.